All right. Good morning. I'm Rich Stiles-Oldring from the TIPS team, and we're here to talk about Google Classroom and how we're using it in Edmonton Public. So I've got three panelists joining me today. Powell Jones from Harry Ainley. Powell's waving there. He's a physics teacher. Powell, say a little bit about yourself while you're eating.
Yeah, I teach physics here at Ainley. I also run the technology, and I've been playing with the Google Classroom since the summer, since it first came out, and started to play with it, and yeah, really enjoying it.
Awesome. All right. And we also have Nick Riley, who is at Baldwin. Nick, you want to say a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Nick. I teach grades 4 to 9. I have a wide range of subjects. Classroom has really worked out well with me this year. I've been trying it since the summer, like Pal's been doing as well.
Awesome, cool. And Cam Beef is from Edmonton Christian.
Yeah, hi. I also teach social studies, grade 10, 11, and 12. And like Nick and Powell, I've been playing with this since summertime when it first became available.
Awesome, cool. Okay, so this I'm going to be upfront and say that this is the first time I've ever done a Q&A broadcast. So I'm not 100% sure what you're seeing on your end, but if you see a place to put in a question, and then we will address it as a panel. And so hopefully, I mean, I got some stuff queued up here, but if something's in your mind, or you want to have something answered, then throw it in that questions space, wherever that is. But I want to ask you guys, first of all, what's the best part about using Classroom? And I should say this too, this is a broadcast, so we might share screens, but we're going to try not to show student information or stuff of that nature. But if we have to share screens, we'll do what we can. Back to my first question, what's the best part about using Classroom? Like, what have you found to be the coolest thing? Any takers to start?
I'll go first. I mean, I think just the sheer organization of, you can share a document and it makes a copy for the students if you want to make a copy, or it just gives you, or it shares the document with the kid, and then when they can submit it back. Just having everything in one place all the time, and then being able to mark it online and then quickly flip over and assign a mark to the student and then give it back I hate paperwork, so this made my life an absolute dream.
Would you guys concur with that?
Oh, most definitely. The biggest part for me teaching, at least at an elementary standpoint, is it's a standardized URL. Like, you guys go to Google Classroom. That's where you're going to find everything. And the kids love the fact that it's like, that's the one spot. There's different classes in there. It's modular, so like if I have assignments for this class, they're over here. This class is over here. And I mean, if I'm teaching social studies and then we switch to science, the kids know it's just, it's a really quick flip, and they can open up their assignment. And the fact that there's no losing papers, like Powell was saying, like paperwork, none of that other stuff, everything just lines up nicely for them. And it's super simple from that perspective.
Yeah, I agree with both Nick and Powell. For me, I found that I spent so much time on the first days of class and information setting kids up. Setting up my bins in Google Drive and assorting classes and creating an email, and do I have a Google group that's ready so that I could organize everything. I just spent so much time, and what Google Classroom did was it streamlined the process and made it so that I could get right to teaching and building relationships as opposed to organizing my Google Drive. And it was just really nice and streamlined from marking perspective, from a setup perspective. Yeah, just thoroughly enjoyed that part.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest complaints that we got from teachers when we went to Google Drive was the management issue of all these folders coming in and emails coming in and no way to make sense of it. And it seems like Classroom's done a good job kind of cleaning that up. We actually have questions coming in. Yay! So here's the first question from Dennis Pratt, and it's a good one to start us off with. He says, I have not started using Google Classroom. How do I get started? Anybody want to show him how to get started?
The way I did it before, I'll just share screens right now really quick. So I flipped open Classroom, and I got like tons of classrooms you guys can see. was I started with a homeroom classroom down here. So I mean, you know, you hit the plus button, you punch in whatever else you guys want to create a class with, call it what you want, put your section in, and then you hit create, and you're literally off running. So we can just run test class right now. Then it's going to ask you, you know, so it looks basic stream. You have your class code sitting over here where kids can sign up if they punch that in. And when we've had larger classes, like my media arts class, we've gotten them to just punch in their class code rather than inviting 50 students. But you can also go and invite your own students here, and then you can choose which ones to go through. And once they're in, then you can just start posting stuff. Your assignments or your announcements are right here. And it's really simple. You'll just type in what you want to share with your class. You'll hit post, and your assignment, you know, you change when you want your due date to be, and you attach your files from Google Drive or wherever else you wanted, and the kids can, you know, make a copy on their own. There's a button that pops up here if I pick a Google Drive assignment. I'll just go pull one up really quick.
So you started by going classroom.google.com, right?
Yeah.
That's your, and then you're going to join as a teacher.
Right.
First. Yeah.
If you haven't done that, thanks, Rick.
Yeah.
And then make a copies right there like Pal was talking about, or kids can edit the file if you want them all to be changing, or they can view the file there. So it's pretty simple.
Yeah, tons of options there. Tons of options.
Yeah.
When students go there first, it's going to ask them if they want to be. It's going to ask them to be a teacher, or if there's a teacher or a student. And we always get some kids who think it's funny to say that they're a teacher, and then we boot them out. So it's not really a big deal, but just tell them there's no benefit to saying that they're a teacher. They actually lose some of the functionality that they would have as a student, and although they do get the ability to create a classroom, for what it's worth, and then we boot them out. So it's not a big deal. Any other things for starting up that you guys? Any suggestions about starting a Google Classroom?
I was just noticing when Neil was going through the process about inviting students, on that drop-down menu, you can actually, it gives you a suggestion of your Google Groups. And so it'll actually show which class that you've already been assigned through the downtown process. So instead of picking individual students or having them sign into a class code, you could already select your Google Classroom based on Google Group, select that class right off the bat, and then what it would do is that would all be preformed. Students just have to accept the invitation at that point, and you could make that as part of your first class process or something like that.
Where do they get that? What do when you said the students just have to accept the invitation? Where do they accept that invitation? Will that come through their email, or will that appear on a screen somewhere?
I believe that actually comes to their Google email account.
Yeah,
I'm not 100% sure of that.
There's a thing that pops up in their email, and when they go to Google Classroom, there's a box that's just waiting for them to hit accept. There's two of them. It's really hard to miss.
Cool. Okay, I didn't know that. That's awesome. We have another question here. This one's from Kelsey, and she is saying, is there any way to organize assignments by subject within each class? Okay. So is there any way to organize assignments by subject within each class, or can it be organized by date or assignment? So I think what she's trying to, this is kind of one of those good questions that we've been mulling over about Classroom. Is it better to go, particularly for elementary teachers, is it better to have one class with multiple subjects in it, or is it better to have a classroom per subject? This is easier, of course, in high school, where you could. Actually, no, this would be the flip side for a high school discussion would be, is it better to have each block its own class, or would you put all your social 30s together, for example?
In high school, I ran all my physics 30s in one class as one thing, because we were always in line, and so you could do that, but you could easily to have a more manageable size, and for entering your marks, for example, into gradebook, it's maybe a little bit easier to do it actually as per block.
Okay.
Yeah, I know for me at the high school, I actually arranged mine by block because I wasn't always in alignment between the two periods, and so it just made it easier for me. And with the nature of social studies, sometimes you went off in a different direction with each class. So putting in video links or resources or an article you might have read might have been different between classes, same subject matter, but in different areas, so that they had the context around some of that kind of classroom discussion.
Nick, how have you got yours set up?
I've got all of those different subjects like elementary, like I teach science and social studies and math, and they all have their own class. That way there's less cross-posting. And with the way the stream works, I wouldn't want a social studies assignment here and then a science one here and stuff keeps getting pushed to the bottom. I'd much rather have them the way I have it set up now. And the kids find it a lot easier too for their own organization. They're not worried about which assignment was from which class or anything else. It's in color. It's really simple. The green one is science. The purple one is social studies, and you can't mess it up. So I would much rather set it up by subject.
So what about then when you're okay? So let's say we'll work with everybody has their own subject classroom. Inside your drive, is there any way to kind of manipulate the organization? As I know that it creates the classroom folder, and then when you first sign in, it'll create that classroom folder. Then it will create another folder in there for each subject area or each classroom. Inside there, it's broken down by assignment. But is there any way to manipulate that? Yeah?
Yeah, there's definitely a couple ways you can do it. In my drive, underneath those subjects, if I have assignments and things that I haven't yet posted for the kids, they're still underneath their subject folders. And some of those folders, because I'm team teaching with a few other people or I have grade partners that are doing similar things, those folders are shared with them. So they might not be in the classroom, but they can still see all of my assignments and they can still manipulate and work in there with those things as well.
Can you show us that?
The team teaching feature isn't in Classroom at this point in time, but those folders inside Classroom are shared with the people that I'm team teaching with so that they can work on the assignments and things like that as well. That's how I have it set up. I know you can also move those folders around inside your drive under Classroom, provided they stay underneath that in the subfolders below Classroom. Everything else works out really nicely for putting assignments away or whatever else. So.
Do you archive them or something? Can you show us your drive? Is that?
Yeah, sure, if you want. You can't archive assignments yet, and actually Trevor was just posting today saying that would be a really nice feature, and I've asked for it a couple weeks ago too. So this is my drive right here. This is this year. So I've actually embedded my classroom folder underneath, the year. So I have a bunch of different stuff from other things last year or whatever else. So this year, this is my classroom folder. It's hiding out here, and you can see it's already shared with a couple other people. And then underneath it, inside the classroom, there's a bunch of all my classes that we've created or I've shared with other people. And for instance, like my social studies one has a bunch of those assignments and templates and things that we've talked about. And then there's other things that, some textbook pages for kids to take a look at, some kids projects that they've shared outside of things, some other links and some stuff that I haven't posted yet for them, along with my assessments. So the kids can't see those, but those other teachers that I'm working with can see those assessments and edit them and can work with them that way. So that's how I've got it set up.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay, I have another question for you. This is just I'm wondering how you see your students responding to Classroom. So we'll just change it up a little bit. So what kind of how do your students take to it? Powell?
You know what? It's interesting. I've been using websites and all that stuff for a really long time. It's funny. Some years the kids really grab onto it. Other years the kids want the paper handed to them because that's the easy way of doing things. So Classroom is kind of I'm not using it as a full-on way of giving information. I still have I actually use the Google Sites a ton, but I'm using Google Classroom simply as a hand out an assignment that I want it handed back in. The kids actually fought me a little bit on it because the high school kids wanted to do it on paper and pen and paper. So 21st century students aren't very 21st century in a lot of ways. I used to get better reports years ago from Excel and everything else. And this is part of the ICT outcomes in physics in the sciences that we have to cover. So I made them do all their data analysis using spreadsheets, and this was a great way to force them to have to turn it in and do it that way. So it worked out great. They didn't like it at first, but after a couple of assignments, they started to like it, because if I could ask them to make changes, they could quickly make changes and resubmit them. And so instead of having to redo their paper all over again. So in the end, they just took some bribing, but if they start coming, I think, from the junior highs into high school, and the other high school teachers start using it, it'll be natural for them.
Yeah, I would say I had a lot of this similar experiences as Powell. A lot of pushback from students, not from parents, but from students. They tended to be almost more conservative in some ways. And so in social studies, I got a chance to call them a Luddite, and talk about how these old people are showing them up technology-wise. But you know what? Anything new, and you bring that to the classroom, and if they've had you as a teacher before, they sort of drag their feet a little bit. But it didn't take very long when they saw the power of how you could share that and to post comments and some of the resources that they have. And I liken Classroom to sort of a one-stop shop, because I had a Twitter account, I had Google Sites, I had all these different things. So kids sometimes had a hard time knowing just for sure where they needed to go to access resources. And so if I was making Google Classroom this year sort of my one-stop place, in some ways, one thing that I wouldn't mind seeing is a bit of a Twitter-like feed, either with Google Plus that would be integrated and Google Plus be open up to students, so then it would be more of a one-stop shop, or some way that you could embed a Twitter feed into that, because I use that considerably for especially article reading and some of those kinds of resources that I find.
Yeah, so looking for a way to kind of bring it from bring stuff from the outside.
Yeah.
Twitter, that'd be kind of cool. Yeah. Nick, how are your kids doing with how do they take to it?
There was a little bit of confusion at first in typing it in and everything else, as opposed to having a button they could push. With the grade 4s, who hadn't done a whole lot of stuff with the tech before, but it's gotten a lot better, and it's to the point where it's like, guys, go to Google Classroom, and they go and they work their way through things, and it's really, really simple. And like Cam was saying, the one-stop shop, that's definitely its biggest positive. They don't have to go finding things in other places, and for the little guys, that's definitely a huge strength for them, because to find 3 or 4 different places or to go searching for stuff is not a strength, and we're just teaching them to start being organized, so this has made it a lot simpler for them to be organized.
And one other thing that I think we haven't necessarily talked about, but kids are social media savvy in terms of how to move about a social media site, whether it be Instagram or Facebook or even Google Plus for that matter. And so one of the advantages, I think, of the Google Classroom layout is it's a lot like a Facebook feed. And kids are constantly scrolling through it, looking for things. It's in an environment that they understand, and so it wasn't that hard of a transferable skill to get them to come and to find the information in the classroom. And so that, I think, Google Classroom got down pretty good too. Organizationally, I liked how they got the assignments in one place. I didn't like, as a teacher, scrolling through the feed looking for where the assignments were, but those things are changing, I think, too. And with the latest update, to have those assignments now in just one place is kind of a added feature.
Yeah, we've touched on a couple things here that have already been addressed in Google or in Classroom. So the new update now has teachers an assignment bar on teacher. So at the very top corner, you'll see a home button. Underneath there is the assignments. So you can see all the assignments that you've given out, which is very, very handy. The students have actually seen that from the beginning. It's one of the things I liked about the student use of Classroom, is that all the classrooms that they are taking part in have all their assignments aggregated at the top of their list. So I thought that was pretty awesome. And again, Nick, too, with the button, there's now an app, right? They've just released the iOS app and the Android app, and it looks so slick on the phone. Like again, and I like the idea of being, as a teacher, being able to use my phone to see who's handed in what, and I can walk around the room and say, you haven't handed it in yet, like just to give me as a teacher that mobility, so I'm not locked to my desk and I'm not locked to the front of the class, but I still have access to the classroom in my hand.
Yeah, I've added a couple pictures and things from class before too, using my camera when it was on mobile web, and it wasn't a cumbersome process, but it wasn't super easy now. But now to have a button that you push, take a picture, and then just post it into your classroom is super slick. It's way nicer, and that just made it so much quicker and easier for me to say, hey guys, we're looking at this, and you know what, if you forget about it today, here's your notes. You guys can go take a look at it tonight, tomorrow, when you guys want to review it later. So it's super slick that way.
So that kind of is going to lead me to my next question then. What's some of the creative ways you're using the stream or in the announcements in your class, in your classroom? It looked off. I mean, as Cam was saying, it's a way they're used to navigating, and there's some really, when I first saw it, I thought this is a brilliant way to connect with kids between classes. But what's some of the ways that you've maybe were unexpected that you've used the stream?
Well, I can speak to that initially. I started in this last semester. I wanted kids to take a little bit more of a risk when they were doing some work and publishing their work to the outside world, but they were very uncomfortable with having the whole internet being able to access some of their work. I said, okay, well, how about as a class where everybody could actually access the work and see what their colleagues and their peers were working on. And so when I had them create, and I think we used Easily to make infographics, and what they did was we were looking at the different genocides of the 20th century, and so they were doing a research project on that. They created an infographic, and then they published it to the stream so that they could end up looking at each other's work. And so not only were you sharing information so that everyone was getting a chance to learn about the Rwandan or the Armenian or the Holocaust genocides, but now they were also getting a chance to see each other's work as they work collaboratively together in that published environment. That for them gave them a sense of safety, as opposed to we're just going to publish it out to the World Wide Web in one way or the other.
That's very cool. Anybody else, Nick?
Outside of the snapping pictures and having kids comment on it and talking stuff, that's about as far as I've gone with this super creative way. Camp, like, whoa, that's amazing, that's awesome. That's pretty much it. I mean, my kids are really enjoying the fact that it makes a copy for them and everything else. But outside of the picture adding stuff, like.
I also asked I also asked Danielle Fluke about that question, and one of the things, she's a teacher in our district who's been using Classroom quite extensively, and she said one of the things she liked was that when you give an assignment, you can have the comments underneath the assignment to that individual student. So as a way to have a dialogue about the assignment and a discussion just with that one student in an asynchronous kind of way, that I think is, that's pretty cool. That's not an easy thing to do in any other format than what a classroom has established. Just going to see if the I have here's another question that's come up. Here we go. I'll just see if it's as users of Google Classroom, do all students have access to a device at all time? How do you use it if you don't have regular access to a device? So, can I assume that all of you guys you have like Chromebooks in your classroom, or how do you make sure that that's available to your students?
We're not quite at the BYOD level, especially in elementary school, but I do have a couple of kids that bring their own tablets in and prefer to use those. But we do have a set of Chromebooks, so they don't live in my room, but we have regular access to them. And the kids use them 3 or 4 times a week at least. So yeah, I can't speak to how we would use it if we don't have a regular device, because our kids usually have access.
So sorry, I kind of got it fuzzy on my end. I don't know if it did for the broadcast, but you're saying you have a cart for your whole school, One cart?
I have one cart of Chromebooks for our whole school, but they're assigned to a couple of specific classes in Division 2. And we have a BYOD policy, so most of the kids, bring in their own if they don't have a Chromebook sitting at their desk, sort of thing. So there's lots of devices in our school. We have 4 other carts of netbooks and laptops too, so classroom access isn't a big issue for us.
Cam?
In our school, we've pretty much gotten rid of our wired labs, and we are now almost extensively with Chromebooks. We don't have enough, one for each student, but we probably got well over 200 Chromebooks in different carts. And so the big competition is everybody wants to use them now all the time, so that makes it somewhat difficult in terms of the sharing. But again, when you're dealing with high school, they're all coming preloaded with their phones and things like that, so we're trying to get into that culture of bring your own device. And we're talking about that, actually not enforcing it, but encouraging it over the next years, that this is just, you come to school, this is sort of one of your modern tools that you need to bring with, and we don't want people to go out and spend lots of money. And of course, we're always cognizant of the fact that you have some kids of different socioeconomic factors coming in, so we need to have some of those Chromebooks set aside for that. And we run that basically out of the classrooms, but increasingly that's going to be run out of the library, I think, as we go along here.
Powell, your mic's muted, but how do you guys address every kid not having a device or having a device? How do you use the classroom if not everyone has access?
Right. I mean, our kids, the high school kids, have a lot more of their own devices, so kids come with their own stuff. I mean, we've got 9 computer labs, 9 sets of Chromebooks. And so if I'm doing an assignment, I mean, I can get a set of Chromebooks out and do that. And so I never lack of access. That's the thing. I mean, you're not going to use it every day, especially in sciences. I'm just using it for varying assignments, so I don't do it a ton. But the access is either the kids, when the kids were doing this last assignment just before the end of the year, a lot of them were doing it on their phone or on their own tablet or what have you. And that's the nice thing about the Google Docs, is you can use it on just about anything.
Yeah, and to kind of address Lizanne's questions here, like we're noticing, and Nick, you might be able to test this too, we're noticing more and more of the kids down to grade 4 are coming with cell phones or an iPod, and with that app, they have almost the full functionality that I mean, it's not the same as a Chromebook or a desktop. I get that, but it's amazing what these kids can do with their iPods, right?
Yeah.
Or their tablet, or their, whether it's a Samsung tablet or there's so much out there that's changing the way kids can access classroom, that it's, and the funny thing is you have your one set of Chromebooks, but as Nick, like you're saying, I'm encouraging kids or allowing kids to use their devices, and what that does is it actually frees up the Chromebooks for the other kids.
Yeah.
Because some kids would actually rather, and not all kids, I get this, but some kids I think would rather use their phone. They feel comfortable on that device.
Yeah, and it's cool. We're recording YouTube videos of our testing processes this week with some building science cars and moving things around and stuff, and the kids are videoing and they're really enjoying it. But the Chromebook's camera is not perfect or amazing by any margin at all. But I mean, the kids are using it. But there's kids bringing their own devices in and recording their video and putting it up on Google Drive and stuff, and it's really simple, right? Like they're running it no problem. And the kids that are coming with their own tablets, they already know what they're doing because they use it at home, right? It's like, oh, I have to make a video? Okay, this is easy. Let's go do it, right? There's no tutorial in place. There's no step-by-step on how to do things. They just run it.
And it seems to me that most of the apps that are out there for Android or Apple have some form of integrating with Google in one way, or YouTube or something like that. So it allows kids to use apps that they're familiar with. The only requirement being then is that you have to be able to get it to me somehow in the Google environment. So Google almost is almost like a clearinghouse that allows kids through these different app integrations to be able to get that material to us one way or the other.
Yeah, and you've actually made me think of something. One of the problems we've been having with Apple is that it's really hard to take something off of an iPad and get it into and get it to the teacher. That will almost always be the case with a shared iPad. Like we can't, but maybe Classroom might help us. I have to look into it a bit more, but maybe Classroom might be a helpful way to kind of share some of the stuff back and forth.
On that, on the iPads and stuff, it's the new Google Drive app for the iPad and for the iOS devices is awesome, because you can, once you log into your account once you're in, and then you can share anything up to Drive and then share it after that. I do that a lot, and so that the new Google Drive app for Apple is fantastic.
Yeah, I echo what Powell said, that we've never had an issue with kids. In our school, I would say we've probably got a 60-40 split with iOS versus Android, and we've never had problems on either platform with kids, as long as they've got the Google suite of tools on them, which are all free for them to download, and they're just loving it. They're finding creative ways that I haven't even thought of in terms of sharing some of that information and some of their learning.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome, and especially now that the Drive is unlimited, you can put we have unlimited storage space, which is, I'm sure our white people are loving, but it makes it easier for us. Okay, we're gonna kind of come to a close here soon, but I want to ask one quick question, and this is just kind of my thing. I think anytime we introduce some of these new technologies, it has an impact on how we teach. So my question for you is how has Classroom changed something about your practice?
It streamlined things for me. I was still using Google Tools before, and there was a lot more management and drive in the background. And now it's like, look, kids, go here, do this. And it's like there's gone from 10 steps to 2. And that's definitely helped a lot with the littler guys. With the big guys, it's easier to get them involved in other things as well. Like we've started setting up classrooms for clubs and things at the school, and it started giving them some input as well, because like that comment stream and stuff, it's like we set up a board games club. Which board game are we playing this Friday? And there's a stream full of comments of kids, what they want to do, and they're setting it up and they're running with it, and we really just show up and participate. So that's kind of cool. It's made things really easy with the kids taking ownership of things and simplifying the process.
That's cool. So you're kind of seeing a little more engagement, perhaps, and some student voice into your classes. That's very cool. Cam? Powell?
I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I don't lose papers anymore, which for me was pretty much the, students, as I submitted some, I'm going, I'm not sure, I can't find it, right? And with Google, you lose that on both sides, the teacher losing it and the student submitting it. So in that sense, there's a lot more confidence in that. And I remember when I first started with GAF, I don't know, 6 maybe years ago, and just feeling a little uncertain and a little uneasy. But as they've ironed out the bugs, as I've gotten used to it, and just feeling a lot of confidence in terms of teaching and challenging students that they're going to be okay, and that this is part of 21st century learning. And the whole idea, I guess for me, collaboration, if I was going to say one thing, probably the collaboration part of it is probably the part that has influenced my teaching a lot more. Especially being a social studies history teacher, right? It's pretty easy to be the one guy at the front of the room and sort of dispensing everything. And now with Google Classroom and all this kind of work and the collaboration, I think has fundamentally changed the way that I approach the classroom.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah, the classroom, I think for me, just the Google Classroom itself has just simplified the paperwork, and it's really given me the ability to jump in and see where the kids are at in the assignment that I've given them, and give them some feedback on the run, and being able, they can turn it in, and then I can turn it back to them and say, no, this is terrible, you got to fix this and this, or this is awesome, or and just give that feedback. And then the kids, the last assignment, the kids that tried all got 100% because I just kept fixing it. The kids that didn't try, well, they didn't return it. That was on them. But, they'll learn to do that over time. And when teachers are going to start to give them that ability to just sort of that back and forth, that constant feedback. That's cool.
Cool. Well, thank you guys for joining us today, and thanks to Powell, Nick, and Cam for sharing some of your insights into Classroom. If you're using Classroom, offer suggestions to Google. We're seeing changes all the time. the amazing thing that I think about this is that Google's what, 6 months old? Do you think is that where we're at? 6 months? Yeah.
Awesome. Yep.
Unbelievable how fast this is catching on, and some of the impacts it's having in our classrooms. So let's keep an eye on it. Let's watch how it evolves, and I'm sure we'll be doing more of these in the future. But thank you very much, guys, and thanks for the questions. Everybody who's asked questions, and I hope you've enjoyed our panel discussion.
Thanks.
See you later.
Thanks.